In a dark, mystical little town called Waitefield, at the very end of the town, just off a secluded intersection, stood an old, abandoned house. It had once been the home of the Stanley family, but now it looked forgotten by time and shrouded in a web of mystery. Next to this house stretched a deep, dark lake that was the stuff of dark legends. Summer vacation always meant for a girl named Lily to meet her grandmother, who lived in this strange town. She never knew why her grandmother had chosen such a secluded place for her home, but every year Lily looked forward to these adventures away from the hustle and bustle of the city. This summer, something was especially strange. As they approached her grandmother's house, Lily felt a special aura of mystery surround it. The old house seemed even darker and more sinister, and the lake shimmered under the moonlight like a calling voice from the depths. Grandmother greeted Lily with joy, but even she seemed tense and mysterious. She never once mentioned the old house or the lake, as if they were taboo subjects. Lily couldn't contain her curiosity. One day, when her grandmother was minding her own business, she decided to go exploring. She walked up to the old house. Its dark walls seemed to absorb the light, and the windows were boarded up as if to hide something terrible from the outside world. Lily felt a shiver as she crossed the threshold of the house. There was deep darkness inside, and only the rays barely penetrated through the gaps in the boards of the windows. She trudged through the cobwebs and dust, trying to ignore her fear. But the deeper she went, the more she felt that she was not alone. The walls of the old house seemed to breathe with a life of their own, and a cold wind blew through the cracks, kicking up dust and cobwebs. Suddenly, Lily heard a whisper. She stopped, straining to listen into the silence. The whispering grew louder and more insistent, as if someone was trying to convey some important message to her. She tried to follow the whispers, step by step, deeper into the house. At last, she found herself in a room illuminated by a barely perceptible light. A shadow loomed up in front of her, like a ghost, and Lily froze, unable to tear her gaze away. The shadow took shape, and Lily recognized the woman's face. It was her own grandmother, but her eyes were full of darkness, and her face was a mask of fear and hopelessness.
Lily!
The shadow whispered, her voice sounding like an echo from the past.
You shouldn't have come here. There is evil lurking here that should not be awakened.
Lily felt fear take over her body, and she turned, rushing toward the door. But another shadow arose before her, pale and grim. It was the shadow of a man, with dark eyes full of malice and agony.
You found yourself here,
whispered the man.
You belong to me now, just like everyone else before you.
Lily closed her eyes, trying to escape this nightmare, but it was as if it consumed her, surrounding her with darkness and fear. When Lily opened her eyes, she was lying on a bed in her grandmother's room. The light of the afternoon sun was all around, and everything seemed so ordinary, as if nothing had happened. But the scary images of the old house and the dark shadows still lived in her memories, like ghosts from the past, ready to emerge from the shadows and take over her mind again. Lily sat up on the bed, shivering from the nightmare that had passed. She realized it was only a dream, but its reality seemed so vivid that she couldn't immediately let go of the fear that had possessed her in that moment. She looked out the window, where the calm landscape spread out behind the glass. But even now, in the bright light of day, she felt dark shadows watching her, as if waiting for her in the next corner to pull her back into a world of nightmares and fears. She spent the day trying to forget her nightmares, busying herself with reading old books and doodling in her sketchbook. But even in her calmest moments, she felt something watching her from the shadows, like a penetrating cold wind that carried ominous messages. At night, when she went to bed, her dreams were again filled with nightmares of the old house and its gloomy inhabitants. She fought these dark visions, trying to awaken from this nightmare. But the harder she fought back, the nightmare only seemed to get worse. In the morning when she woke up, she felt exhausted and worn out, as if she had gone through a night of battle with the darkness. She realized that this city and its dark secrets stayed with her, and even if she returned home, they would haunt her in her dreams and thoughts like demons that would not leave her alone. So ended her summer vacation in this small town, shrouded in mystery and fear. And though she returned home, she knew that a part of her would remain in the shadows of this place, like an eternal shadow, reminding her of her encounter with the darkness. Several weeks passed after Lily returned home. She tried to forget about her terrifying experiences in the small town, but the shadows of nightmares continued to haunt her even in her daily life. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw images of the old house, its dark corridors and ominous shadows, as if they were trying to come back to her from a dark past. She told her parents about her nightmares, but they thought they were just a figment of her imagination, the result of stress and fatigue. They comforted her and told her that everything would be all right, but Lily knew that she alone could not free herself from the shadows of the past. One day, Lily found a picture in old photo albums that showed her grandmother as a young girl. She was standing outside her old house, smiling, but her eyes seemed somehow strange, as if she was hiding something dark and mystical. This image only intensified Lily's vague memories of her time in the small town. She started asking her parents about her grandmother, what they knew about the place where she lived, and the old house on the edge of town. But the answers she got were vague and vague, as if her parents were trying to hide something from her too. Lily realized that she needed to return to the small town to unravel the mysteries of her past and free herself from the nightmares that haunted her. She decided to go there alone so that no one could interrupt her and nothing could distract her from her goal. So, one cold fall afternoon, Lily found herself once again in the small town of Waitefield. She arrived at her grandmother's old house, but this time she felt no fear. On the contrary, she felt the determination and resolve to unravel the mysteries of this place, even if it was the only thing she would do in her life. Gathering all her strength and determination, Lily began her investigation. She explored every corner of the old house, scoured the surrounding woods, and investigated the shores of the lake. With each step, she came closer to solving the mystery that had haunted her for so long. One day, while she was looking for traces of the past on the lake shore, she found an old handwritten diary buried under the sand. In it were entries about Lily's grandmother, describing events that Lily had never heard before. She learned about the strange rituals performed in the old house and the ancient rites associated with the lake. As she read the diary, the picture of what was happening became more and more dark and mystical. It turned out that Lily's grandmother was part of an ancient community that worshipped ancient forces that awakened from the depths of the lake. The old house was their sacred place, where dark rituals were performed in search of immortality and power. With each page of the diary, Lily realized that these dark forces were the source of her nightmares and fears. She realized that her grandmother had been consumed by these dark rites and had become a part of them, but Lily was determined not to repeat her mistakes. Suddenly, as Lily was immersed in the horrible truth, a dark shadow loomed over the lake, as if the spirits of the past were awakening and beginning to manifest their power. The water in the lake began to boil and froth, dark silhouettes rising from it, emitting cold and fear. Lily felt the magic of the dark forces begin to encompass her, consuming her consciousness and will. She realized that if she didn't stop this process, she would become part of the same dark force that had possessed her grandmother. Lily's willpower and determination were her only weapons against the dark forces that surrounded her. She closed her eyes, focused on her thoughts and feelings, and began to fight against the influence of the evil embodied around her. Slowly but persistently, Lily confronted the forces of darkness, found the strength and courage to resist them. Her determination was so strong that she was able to break the seal that planned to capture her soul and freed herself from her captivity. As the last threats of the demons dissipated, Lily looked into the depths of the lake and felt free from the shadows of the past, but at the same time realized that the secrets of this place would stay with her forever, reminding her of the fight against evil and the victory of light over darkness. Lily left the small town knowing that she had risen from the ashes of fear and nightmares, strengthening her soul and heart. She returned home to start her new life, but in her heart there would always remain the shadows of the secrets and fears she had experienced in the small town on the outskirts.